evening and welcome to the third episode, or episode 3, of the Info Circuit with the Irish EV Association. My name is Derek Riley. I sit on the committee with the events, and I'm joined tonight by our chair, Matthew Seeley, in his second term. Make Ireland great again. Matthew.
Somebody keeps voting me in, Derek. I don't know who, but they did. So I'm here again. It's great.
Absolutely phenomenal working with you over the last year and a bit, and even before that when you were on the committee. So we said we were going to do a info circuit for the committee, and for the association, and we're broadcasting live across our Facebook page, our LinkedIn page, our YouTube channel, and our X account page. So wherever you're tuned in from, jump into the comments and let us know so that we know that the live stream is actually working. We'd appreciate that. But myself and Matthew came up with this idea a couple of months ago, probably last year. And I was looking after events last year as well. And I said, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And so we've had 2 already. We had Weave and we had ePower. Matthew looked after episode 2 with ePower and I looked after episode 1 with Weave. So they're on the YouTube channel. They're on the LinkedIn page. So if you're interested in those topics, go back and have a look at them. But tonight, it's a general roundup as to what is happening. So we have the team from the EV Association in Northern Ireland coming in on YouTube. Good to see you, everybody. And we have Niall Connolly coming in. Great to see you, Niall. And Thomas McGuire coming in on LinkedIn. Look at that.
Excellent. Yeah.
All we want now is somebody on Twitter, X, whatever we're supposed to call it.
Officially X. It's changed. It's X.
It has officially changed, yes. No more Larry the Bird. Matthew, we have a little presentation so that we can keep on track. We're going to keep it less than the hour or thereabouts, but in the last 7 days, 14 days, it's just been...
There's been a lot. And I suppose we're trying to condense it into one little time slot and get it all hit with everything. But I don't think anybody's worried about us talking for the hour, Derek. So I think we'll get through it fine. We have a lot of topics.
Shy. Yeah.
But we have enough things to talk about. So there's been a lot. So we're going to kick into it. And I think people have questions, throw them in. You know, it's kind of an update from all of us at the association here, myself and Derek from the association anyway, as to what's going on. But it's what we're seeing and what's going on. So I think we'll kick off with things, which is the big one. Let's kick it off with ZEVI and in the last week with the big things. And it's an interesting one insofar as, you know, they've put out 2 full documents complete at this point in time, and a third one that is in the I suppose draft stages where they're looking for responses and people's input. But this is all around the National EV Charging Network Plan. And the great thing to see is we've had time with ZEVI. We've sat down, we've talked to them about what's going on and where things are at. But the big one is people have been seeing the DC side of things, which is our en route charging. It's the National Road Network EV Charging Plan. It's the one that's on the left-hand side of the image here. And the one that's been missing is the regional and local EV Charging Network Plan. So that's our kind of balance between our DC fast charging en route and our kind of local AC, you know, those
neighborhood destination.
Neighborhood destination. And they're not even hubs, but they're more like, what's the word I'd use here? But they're becoming more where it's e-bikes. It's a little local area to people that they can come to and see all of these things. So these 2 arms together are fantastic to see coming through at this stage.
Yeah, mobility hubs, and they've trialed them. I know Fingal, it was Fingal, or it might have been Dublin City Council tried one, and they had a car rental scheme. They had some e-bikes, as you said. They had some charging fast and slow, if I'm not mistaken. And so a nice model as part of the overall jigsaw. It's not going to work for everybody. We're looking for more disseminated local charging as well, whether that be streetlights, whether that be car parks that are used overnight for the purposes of charging in a school or a religious location that may not have been used otherwise. So great to see that other part of the jigsaw, because we all like the big juicy fast chargers, rapid chargers, ultra chargers, but there are people that don't have that have in apartments or in off-street parking that don't have off-street parking, and everybody needs to be brought along, and charging is a right, as we like to say here in the association.
Yeah, and I suppose the big thing there with it is, you know, when you're on those big journeys, you have charging that you can depend on. It's reliable. It's in enough quantity that people can kind of not be stuck in a queue when they're trying to get across the country, and then balance with it where we have a lot of people in apartments and in houses and stuff, as you say, Derek, that we hear them coming back to us and they say, look, I can't charge, I can't make the switch because I don't have that little area where I can actually do it. So it's a fantastic thing. And I suppose the thing to highlight here is with AFER, the AFER directive, this is an EU, I suppose, directive. It's not just the Irish government. It's not coming from what we think ourselves. It's coming from the EU. So it's been thought about on a much bigger scale than just ourselves here in Ireland. We'll get into a little bit more detail on stuff, but it's a 250% increase. It's nearly a 3x increase as to what we have currently, or at the start of this year as to what it was. So, the next 2 years are going to see a massive shift in the charging network across the board. It's a big change. It's light duty vehicles, which is passenger cars and vans, and heavy duty vehicles. It's all been thought about. And the first bit we're seeing out of it is the 21 million that was announced, within the last month or thereabouts, was the motorway scheme to get that up and running, get that in place. So that's been the start of it. It's a fantastic thing to see. It's something that we've been pushing for, that we've kind of said, guys, we need to put the money behind what we're putting into these things. So it's a great one to see that it is coming, and to see the scale of it. That's the big thing, isn't it?
I know that the association, if not 18, potentially 24 months ago, took those larger motorway route, arterial routes, trunk roads, 10T, I think they call them in Europe, not quite all of the 10T, but even more so, and worked out the motorway services and petrol stations along those routes versus electric vehicle charging hubs or even points. And we were lacking on a lot of those routes, whereas I think this will, that motorway national road EV charging plan is definitely going to address that. Now, it is very East Coast South centric because that's where our major roads are, but it will start to go out on the western seaboard and places like that as well. So we're a small country. We won't be going crazy with it because we definitely want to make sure they're utilized, but it's great to see it being rolled out.
Absolutely. And like we move on to the next image here as it is, and to just give people an idea as to, as you've mentioned there, Derek, is that kind of East Coast and South. The dark green line here is the motorway in effect from Foynes to Dublin, from Cork to Dublin, and effectively on the way up to Belfast, from Dublin to Belfast. They're the core network. The comprehensive is that more, not as dark green, is kind of in between, and then the national roads are kind of the grey ones that are on the image. And you really do see the shift, as you say. It's the focus on AFER is really on that core network. That's what they've put into place. Now, the thing I would say is, and it's kind of a great thing to see coming out of what ZEVI have done, is they're actually going beyond that. They're really talking about going beyond just what AFER have put into place for them to do. And that's the big question: is the government going to come up with the promise of what they're putting out there? Are they going to actually meet it? And is the plan big enough? And I suppose the thing that we see when we look through these things is it's not just a case of AFER has said you have to do this much. There's alternatives, as the ZEVI have put into their documents and put it in place. And the alternatives are they're going to put in more than what AFER says they have to do. And part of that is because they see the uptake of EVs and the trajectory that they're forecasting where our EVs are going to be by 2030, and they're kind of going, hold on a minute, with BEVs, with plug-in hybrids, where this is going, we have to meet a certain requirement based on those numbers. And to do that, we have to actually go beyond AFER and what it's in there. So it's a fantastic thing to see from that. But to give people an idea of what's in here, we're talking about 400 kilowatts every 60 kilometers on our main routes. That's the interim step by 2025. I think we're not far off that. Next year, yes, next year. That's the thing. The funny thing about it, I suppose, it goes back to, as you say, we did the analysis on the on-route network stuff at the start of 2023. We haven't gone back to that just yet to update things. But, ZEVI are talking about that 400 kilowatts every 60 kilometers is not far away. That's the way they describe it. They almost think that will be hit by the end of 2024. Now, as users and people who drive across the country in EVs, it doesn't feel like it's enough.
No.
So,
but you know what? We have those certain routes that we go to on a regular basis. And so when we don't see hubs being opened up or new chargers being installed, we think that something's happening. But there's like every single day, every single week, there are more and more of EV charging, slow and fast, onto the network. We're not getting less, we're getting more. Which I think is phenomenal. And the visibility of them, and people, You know what? You're hearing less and less stories of problems because you never hear the good stories. And so don't get me wrong. We're not saying that it's perfect. And when you start to look at other European countries, we are probably lagging behind on a per capita basis, but we're definitely getting there.
We absolutely are. And just this is going to be an eye test for people, I suppose, but it's to go to show 2025 on the left hand side, 2030 on the right, what they're looking at. There's the three alternatives, alternative 1, 2, and 3. IEVA is the alternative 1. Alternative 2 is what ZEVI are targeting. And you can see when we get into that, you know, alternative 2 on the left hand side, medium EV scenario by 2025, they're talking about more than just a 10T core, which is that main motorway route from Cork, Limerick, Dublin, and towards Belfast. They're talking about the comprehensive, which is those other roads. It's, you know, going to Waterford, it's going to Galway. It's a lot more of those other roads that need that infrastructure. And if you just took IEVA on its own, you would ignore them. And that's a pity from that perspective when people are trying to get around the country. So we're seeing a lot of it. And these figures, 600 kilowatts at 60 kilometers is each way. People need to remember that when they're looking at it. So we're talking about the hubs of 1.2 megawatts of charging capacity by the end of 2025. That's what we're looking at every 60 kilometers. That's not insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
It's great.
So it's a great thing.
People who are tuned in, I know some of you are focused. I know Niall, who was in at the start of the session, neighborhood charging, domestic charging, doesn't have the ability to charge at home. So we will be getting to that. But these we're very lucky in Ireland. 80% of us have the ability to charge on our own property. We have a driveway. I was in the UK on Friday, and it's 40% over there. So for the vast majority of us, we're able to do it. So this is relevant to those because charging at home or at work. But we will be getting to those people who can't. And so now stick with us. It's great to see all this expansion and the network getting stronger and stronger on these main arterial and trunk routes.
Absolutely. And the thing I would say with the comment I'd make is I was in Moneygall on Sunday, and you know, people were coming back from the match. There was a lot of people in Barack Obama in Moneygall. If all those people were looking for a charger, it would have been a disaster. So it's for those days that these things need to be there. So as I say, it's great to see these hubs that are coming online and to see what's in the plans here. It's going to be that longer term side of things as it picks up and it gets further and further. It's when it gets busy like that, that's when we're going to need to see those sort of much bigger hubs coming online. We're not there yet, but it's going in the right way. I think there's a couple appearing, you know, which are getting to the point where we're going to see a lot more stuff coming in the right direction. So it's good.
For those people tuned in tonight, jump into the comments and let us know what you think of the network, what you're seeing on the ground, wherever you are based. I'm in Dublin at the East Coast. Matthew's down in the Limerick area. So we've either side covered, but I'm sure there's a lot of other places around the country that you're tuned in from. So jump into the comments and let us know what you're seeing out there. Moving on then, Matthew.
So moving on then, the other big thing that was officially put out by ZEVI today was the Universal Design Guidelines. So these are around the units, they're around the car park, they're around the site. It in effect is, you know, how we are going to use the recharge network as it will be, and how accessible it is, which is a big thing, because I think to date we've seen it where, you know, in some sites we've put in charges where they've been able to get it in and it kind of has not been ideal. So from people in wheelchairs, people with lack of mobility who can't lift heavy cables, all these sorts of things have not really been thought about enough up to this point in time. And the Universal Design Guidelines being put out there is something that's fantastic to see, that it gives that bit of, you know, clear guidance. That's what it is. It's clear guidance that we know what's going on and where things need to be at. A big part of it is around stuff coming from IEVA as well, as to, you know, before you even arrive at a site, it should be able to tell you if the charger's online, you know, whether it's what price is on it. So you can make a decision before you stop at a certain location as to how much it is. It'll integrate into things like Google Maps down the lines where you can say, I'm trying to drive to Cork, where can I charge along the way? And it'll tell you the prices along the way, that sort of stuff. Tap and charge,
whether they're working, you know, so there's a lot of good stuff coming.
Absolutely. And again, big enough bays for people to get in and park and get out. we're going to touch on it again later, but my Citroen van does not fit in the current parking bays that exist. Therefore, I'm
Get rid of the
kind
van.
of,
Oh, sorry.
children first there, then the van. But in that order, actually, to be quite honest. But yeah, you end up in a situation where actually I'm trying to park in some of these bays and it really doesn't work based on the size of the vehicle. Now, that's a vehicle that's quite large. But if you have somebody that's in a wheelchair or somebody that's lacking mobility and you have a big step to a charger, the cables are very heavy, all this sort of stuff needs to be thought about and make it more accessible. That's where we need to be at with these things.
Also, Matthew, your vehicle is based on a commercial vehicle chassis, so we want also that trade, that business side of things that are out and about as well, utilizing electric vehicles. So if it doesn't fit that Citroen Space Tour, which is based on that Citroen Relay, no, is it the Relay?
Jumpy is what they call it in France, the Citroen Jumpy.
And so that size, that medium size LCV, as I would have called it, but they need that space as well. And so whether it's so these guidelines have been, I read a read through it last Friday when they came out. It's great to see that they're putting so much consideration into everybody wanting to use electric vehicles.
Yes, yeah, and again, large vans like that are probably going to have a trailer. That doesn't suit any charge point at this point in time. So there's big things from that side of things.
Lochshever will have that drive through when it comes online. I know Thomas is every day. I don't know how often he refreshes it, but it might be every half an hour. I don't know. Thomas, how often do you check it? But and that's where my in-laws are in Mullingar, so I'll be definitely utilising it. Quick comment in from Niall. Oh, I have plans, all right, but don't realise that the percentage was that big with driveways. Yeah, 80% of the population of Ireland have a driveway. I wonder that applies to the city centres. Absolutely, the whole. And so a lot of people have the ability to park off street. Conversation the other day. The plan sounds great, but all down to cost per kilowatt. So that's comment number one. And then we also have Alan in as well. Any update from ESB, specifically e-cars, regarding reducing the cost of charging? And we are going to get to that later on. So there was some good news over the last couple of days. And pressure will come on. Competition is a good thing. I have sent an email in myself only about a month and a half ago to them saying, lads, ladies,
make the change. Yes,
come on now.
I think, to be fair, we won't spoil it by saying that e-cars are not the one we're talking about with the price reductions this evening. Maybe next month, Derek, but not for this month anyway. When we get to that later on. So, but yeah, universal design guidelines, they're a great thing. We pretty much went through everything when this was in the consultation phase, and we pretty much agreed with everything. It was Irish Wheelchair Association, it was people from Safe Charging UK, all these sort of groups had a big involvement into documentation that went into it. There was nothing in there that really we could see that was terribly wrong or anything we disagreed with, because it's all stuff that we should be doing with every charge point that goes in around the country.
Common sense and best practices, and they actually reference it in the guideline document as well. So all of these are available through the ZEVI section of the Department of Transport, so if anybody wants to have a look at them.
So then moving on, the draft legislation that's gone out is the regional and local EV charging network plan. This is our neighborhood and destination charging. I suppose the big thing that's here is going back to those percentage of people, as you say, that don't have a driveway, can't charge at home. A just transition is around a sustainable energy shift. It's around those people who can't have their own home charge point and effectively shop around every year for their cheapest electricity rates, to be able to have something that is suitable for them, where they're not paying extortionate prices for it, basically. And a just transition fundamentally is around the fact that we're moving to a point where we have a shift in technology and a shift in the way of how we refuel a vehicle, and in going to an electric vehicle, we actually should be making it cheaper for people. That's fundamentally what the just transition is. And again, it goes back to renewables on the grid and all that sort of work that goes on, is actually we're trying to make things that, we bring down the cost, not keep it the same, but it should be coming down in the long term. That's what a just transition is. That's what the EU have put into place. And the EU Fit for 55 is around that reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and bringing it down to a level. And that's where this just transition falls in, is having that in the local area for people. So this is open for draft. I think the biggest thing we can say to it at the minute is to put in your views. That's what I would encourage anybody that's watching. Put in your view, get your thought into it and put into what you see as suitable for what is in here. That's the important part about all of it. We will be going through it as a committee ourselves in the association to get more information out of it, and we will put in a response ourselves, and we'll post it up on our site as we always do with these things. But the big thing is for the individual to put it in there as well. In your local area, what you see, what does or doesn't work. And this goes back to the urban-rural divide that we hear talked about. Arguably, I have argued the point that if you live in a rural location, chances are you're not fighting over your driveway to put in a charge point. But if you live in a small village where you might be parked out on the road, you have the same problem as somebody does in a high-rise apartment block in the city. It needs to be worked on to get things in the right direction for those people. So that's where this should be coming about and coming into it all. And yeah, I'm just going to move it on here just to show that, what we're looking at is the destination and neighborhood is in between the en route stuff and the workplace and home. It's kind of that other area of charging that needs to go on. And the map on the right hand side is they've actually broken the counties up into different regions. So they've grouped them together. This is based on the fact that not every county council has enough bodies to do all of the work on their own. So ZEVI are engaging with these different regions to have one individual that can talk amongst many of them. I think this is a great idea because, it allows these regions to come up with, plans on their side that are a bit easier to implement across multiple regions. Limerick, where I am, is funny enough on its own because they were actually slightly ahead in their plans as to what ZEVI were doing on this. So actually, ZEVI took the decision to leave Limerick on its own just because it was ahead. But other counties were not in the same position. So they've kind of grouped them together to say one or two people out of 4 or 5 county councils will come together. They'll work on the plan, but it actually also makes it a bit more consistent across those regions as to what happens. And that's another great thing to come out of that. So for people to be aware, that's what's going on. If you see your county and you can see what's around you, have a look and see what's in there and get an idea as to what's going on. That's, again, it goes back to encouraging people to look at it from that perspective is, there's a little bit of local thinking has to go on with this to look to the bigger picture.
I've got another comment in from Alan. If government wants widespread electric car adoption, they must reduce the cost of public charging. When they're convinced the public to swap from petrol to diesel, the selling point was cost. It's definitely one of the factors, Alan, for sure. Now, we as an association understand the investment that it takes from private organisations to put in high-power charging, but that lower-powered AC stuff, destination neighbourhood stuff, the overnight stuff, like I couldn't tell you where my nearest AC charger is now. There was one or two across the road from me here, where I could plug in the car, walk home to the apartment that I'm living in. Whereas now I have to fast charge it, and it's not good for certain battery chemistries to be doing that all the time as well. So we want to make sure that there's choice and that lower cost of the installation and overnight charging. So yeah, Alan, we agree with you on that, but we appreciate that when we're looking for big, massive hubs with canopies and all that good stuff, there's a huge cost there as well. So there is an element of, if you want the super fast, the amenities, there will be a premium to that as well to fill up your EV even faster. Absolutely.
And again, the last bit we'll put onto this is, again, a bit of an eyesight chart. But again, on the left-hand side, it's the county councils. It is the number of chargers that they're talking about doing. In terms of its capacity in kilowatts, this is what needs to be done. The average per county in Ireland is 5,500 kilowatts, so 5.5 megawatts of this neighborhood and destination charging. Now, you look in places like Dublin, you can see by 2025 that's 17.4 megawatts based on population and who's around there. But it is being thought about. It is going in the right way. And then on the right hand side, they're talking about how they're planning on doing things and looking at it in different places, be it, summer destinations where people are going out to the coastal towns and villages, be it, a smaller town, a village. They're looking at it in different ways, trying to build it up. And again, with some of these, they're looking at them from the e-mobility hubs, as we talked about earlier on, to say bicycles, e-bikes, e-scooters. Now we can talk about e-scooters now officially. They're finally legal in what is there. So again, e-scooters form part of this as to what can be done. So, alternative means of transport for people that it doesn't have to be always in a car, fundamentally.
Exactly.
So I suppose that's with, where we are with the ZEVI updates, I suppose that leads us into the next topic, I suppose, Derek, which is where is the charging network at today? Where do things stand? And it's to go to this one, where are we at? And this is where the bit in the middle is the analysis we had done at the start of 2023. And the big thing I would highlight here is Dublin, Dunshaughlin, Dublin, Mullingar, where we Limerick, Galway, Tuam, 0. There is nothing. So when we looked at the analysis, there is nothing on these routes. Limerick to Cork has 1. Dublin Ring Road, the M50 has 1. These things are not good enough when we looked at it at the start of 2023. Now, we know from where things have gone in the last year and a half, nearly at this stage, it has improved and it's gotten better. And I suppose what I'm showing here, the 2 images on the left and right, is what's on the left is what ZEVI are looking at and the hubs that they currently see within 3 kilometers of a main route for the en-route charging. Now, it's little green dots, but they are looking at it as to what's already existing. And where we're short of stuff is what can be done there, I suppose, is to be done with it. One of the interesting ones I had seen was actually it's the Limerick, it's the Crescent Shopping Centre, which is near to me here in Limerick, that has currently got an ESB eCars hub being put into place in it. They actually call that out in the document as one that is within that 3 kilometre distance of the motorway. We see a lot of people who are travelling from Dublin down to West Kerry will stop at Ballysimon. This is going to be another alternative one for them to allow them to do that in effect. Now, I still disagree with the fact that it's a bit too far out of the way. If I was doing that journey, I would prefer something closer to the motorway, but it's something that is there. It falls within A for regulations for distance to the main route as to what it's doing. Therefore, funding can come from the EU to push it through everything that way. So,
and there's amenities there as well, which is, it's always a benefit. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And then the map on the right-hand side is showing the number of points that are already in Ireland. Now, this is okay. It's not great. You go to somewhere like the Netherlands and you start zooming in on cities, and this is just a wash.
Yeah, it looks like that.
See.
Is it red?
Yeah. So it's 2 different levels when you look at these things in different places. But we'll come on to it in a little bit further, talking about traveling the country and what it is like and how things have changed over time. But you're never actually that far away from a fast charger point at this stage. And you're not too far away from a type 2, like an AC charge point. Now, I would say before the comments come in, we're aware of it. There are locations in the country like Clifton and other places like recently I was seeing stuff with East Cork, between Cork and Waterford direction, that there's a bit of a gap in there.
You can see it on the map there now, yeah. So it's definitely areas of the, and you can understand why sometimes, because there isn't that business, it's not, the return on investment isn't going to be there. And I've always said it, and I think Matthew, you've said it as well, if there is going to be funding, whether whoever receives the funding, whether it's eCars or whoever it may be, they should be putting that funding towards areas that aren't going to be commercially viable or less commercially viable, let's put it like that, rather than Carrickmines or Dundrum Shopping Centre or one of those places where the footfall is there, the volume is there. There shouldn't be need for funding into those kind of spaces, but that's a job for another day.
That's another day. And then it goes back to calls of the car grants that we have an urban rural differentiator that might come about. I don't know how strongly it's being considered at this point in time, but again, that falls back into the differences of how these things land. So maybe, as you say, something that sits within a very high traffic area that is going to get the volume of, users should probably receive a bit less, or maybe it should receive the minimum amount, and somewhere that's further out actually receives that bit extra just to help with the development and move in the right direction. Yeah.
I've got another comment in from Niall. We've all got a unique 11-digit number MPRN numbers. ESB Networks controls the all-island network. Simply link the single charging account to your MPRN number via the app. Niall, this all makes perfect sense. Perfect sense doesn't always work out, but yeah, it's not reinventing the wheel here. Like, there's countries around the world that do it. Your account, UK do it with Octopus, one of their Electric Universe or whatever that one is called, and it's your Octopus account. When you account it goes on to your actual bill. And I know on the continent they have dynamic pricing as well, so at night time and more renewable it is a lot cheaper. So for sure, Alan. And I'll take one more before I continue on with you, Matthew. You mentioned investment. Wasn't e-cars funded by the Exchequer? How come Tesla can charge less yet fund their own infrastructure? Alan? I'm not arguing with you there, Alan. I'm just saying, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, e-cars funded by the Exchequer as to what it was. Tesla charged less. I suppose the model behind Tesla, for people that aren't aware of it, is when you bought a Tesla vehicle, you contributed to the charging network that went in behind that. Nobody else is doing that. Therefore, we don't have the same model. And I believe it was €2,000, if I'm not mistaken, per vehicle, something along those lines. Now, I'm open to correction to that, but that's what my understanding is behind it. So, yeah, there's definitely something that Tesla had done from that perspective that allowed them to put in the infrastructure. But again, we've heard of some of their sites in Ireland have been well over €1 million to put into place. That's not small money.
That's a lot of kilowatt hours.
Yeah, it is. But again, it's a capital investment that has to go in. So, any of these CPOs, and there are a good few of them at this point in time, if they're all doing the same thing on multiple sites, that is not small investments coming from these companies. So it's big money. I don't think we quite realize how big it is. And again, I don't know how it works with the existing refueling, petrol and diesel forecourt structures, but I can't imagine any of those sites when they went in were less than €1 million, for argument's sake, for Barack Obama Plaza. So there has to be similar investment going on with these sites previously. So yeah, we all pay for it somewhere along the way. Just how is the question.
Very good. And I think Niall is saying that we're starting to see a pattern developing here. Yes, that the great minds are watching this broadcast at the moment. So hopefully we don't know everybody. Not everybody is jumping into the comments. So there are others watching, no doubt, as well. We're about halfway through, folks. And thank you so much for the contribution. All the likes and shares and comments will really help this video get some traction after we broadcast as well. So make sure you jump into the comments or even give us a like wherever you're watching us on. Matthew.
Okay. So
now, Matthew, you've got a couple of slides that have been zoomed inable. I'm going to make this full screen now as well.
Go full screen. We don't need to see us for a minute there.
He's really tested us.
I'm working it today. The big thing here is when we look at the National Road Network again, and we want to see what's going on. The two tables on either side are actually what we're tracking. This is what we as an association are keeping on. And I say we, it's Thomas. To be quite honest, we give Thomas his dues. It's not we, it's Thomas. He is gung-ho about maintaining this in place. But you can see the level of planning permission that is in place. It's on hold, it's approved, it's in progress. All of this is around the country. And this gets updated regularly. And
so for those, just to clarify, it's on the Irish EV Association website, and you can go in there, and on the site, then you just go into I'll just double check it here now, it's in the charging section. And what Thomas does is he puts up the planning applications, people can go in and see. And so myself and Matthew and the rest of the committee and Thomas are living in this bubble, so we can see all of these great things happening, whether it's ZEVI or IEVA. Look at the list of potential charging hubs, not potential, actual going to be in the ground at some stage. And so we're confident in the charging network getting stronger. Whereas when somebody doesn't see a charger setting up in their locale, they're like, "Oh, this isn't happening." It definitely is happening.
It is, and that's the big thing with showing this one. While it is an eye test, it's an eye test insofar as you probably don't need to read everything, but to realize how big that list is, and it's growing continuously. And that's the thing that I would love for people to be aware of, and for people to, to be encouraged by. If you're looking at this kind of going, where is it going? This is what we see at the minute. And I can guarantee you there's a lot more on that list that isn't even gone into the plan permission side of things just yet. So there is more to come that we are unaware of when we look at what's here. So it's huge investment. Where is it going to be? A lot of these are 6 to 8, probably charge points.
The
high
hubs
power
are starting
to
get more and more. Yeah, the singles, the one-offs are starting to lose their appeal. And it's, if you go to irishevassociation.ie, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, and in the ownership section, that drop-down menu, there is a sub-menu in that called charging network, and then it's charging infrastructure updates otherwise known as Thomas's little section there on the website.
Yeah,
it's his little baby.
But it's fantastic to see it. I think we
Amazing.
should be encouraged by what's there. And as you say, that time of individual sites, that's almost gone away. I think the big individual site sort of we'll see coming is probably going to be around the community charger side of things. That ZEVI is going to have about 200 chargers that go out across the island of Ireland. And you're talking about sports clubs, you know, your local community centres, these sort of things. They're going to be the individual ones that we'll see over the next number of months and year and a half.
Great geographical coverage there. So they had the sports grant, and then they had the regional section and other subsidies. So there's definitely lots of different things happening in different sections.
There is kind of, the Midlands had its own EU fund. It was part of the Just Transition. So it was kind of the Midland region had that as well. So again, that's another round of funding that's come from the EU, separate to what ZEVI have done with the, you know, en route charging, separate to the neighbourhood and destination charging, separate to the community charging that's coming from their side as well. So, you know, now you have another group of it, and we'll touch on it here as well. Faster project delivered a whole lot of chargers across the border region.
Fast. We thought it was dragging out, and they got it at right towards the end of last year, and they had to have stuff on the ground. And Weave was successful on the Republic of Ireland border counties. EasyGo were successful on the Northern Ireland side of the border, and stuff went into the ground fast. Now, one or two of them are still without grid connection, but that's not the problem of EasyGo or Weave. No, that's ESB networks and the grid connection are at the other side of the border with the Northern Ireland side of things. But like, it shows you when there's money there and you need to get it done, phenomenal.
It can be done.
Really good.
Yeah. And again, you know, something like that plan and project took a long time before it hit the ground. But as you say, once it hit the ground, it was very fast. Now, again, I'll go back to the, you know, when we look at the ZEVI's plan for 2025 from an AFIR directive perspective and what they're planning, we might not see anything huge until this time next year, for argument's sake, where we might see a flurry of activity, and that could come about then at that point in time. But we're hopeful that things will be progressing on an ongoing basis in the second half of this year into next year as well. That it's not just, you know, nothing for the next 12 months because things are kind of going okay and then it all lands very quickly. So that's the hope anyway. So, you know, it's a glimmer of hope. The doom and gloom is not all it's made out to be. Things are going in the right direction. That, you know, range anxiety has been replaced by our charger anxiety, but charger anxiety is a thing that will go away as well because there is a lot of stuff coming.
What anxiety will we have then?
I don't know. We'll have to think of a new one, Derek. maybe get suggestions on what's the next anxiety.
Jump into the comments and let us know what anxiety will we have after all the anxieties. I like to call it range awareness. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So
we'll move on. That's kind of the infrastructure. That's where things are at. That's a mixture of ZEVI. That's a mixture of what we've been tracking and what we've seen over the last while. I'm going to jump on to living with an EV and to kind of touch on a couple of things here as to, again, give people an idea what the real world life is like with living in an EV, because we have a lot of people that aren't in an EV. We see a lot of it on the Facebook page. People are looking to get into an EV. What's it really like? How does it compare to what they have before? There is a little mind shift change, I suppose, that goes with it. But, you know, that's to come out of what's there with it, I think. And the current thing to take is there are 73,000 BEVs, which is fully electric vehicles on the road, and 60,000 plug-in hybrids. The interesting thing about that is, and I'll let you go through these few stats in a sec, because you were the ones that have been talking about this and seen it, and you were talking on News Talk today with Pat Kenny, if I'm not mistaken, to get your view. But, you know, the 73,000 BEV, 60,000 plug-in hybrids, yes, we've heard about the market coming down. We've been slightly lower than the rest of Europe in terms of, we've seen a slightly bigger drop in terms of BEV versus the rest of Europe, but the rest of Europe has seen 11%. We've been at about 19%, you know, negative to 2023. Again, we put out a document that put in a lot of stuff that said, you know, there's a lot of things that impact Ireland that are probably different than other countries, but it's not to say that, you know, some people aren't making the switch for many different reasons. And one of them that we do hear about regularly was the charging infrastructure. That's what we talked about. But you know, you've been talking today with Pat Kenny, Derek, about stuff, and these are the couple of bits you had sent me on. So I'll let you step through it and
Yeah,
give people the idea.
for the people that don't know, I work for an organization called Nevo.ie, and so we're a website where people can see all the models that are available, book test drives, and send inquiries into the local dealership. And we're starting to gather stats because we have a number of sister organizations within the motoring bit. So I've got a lot of access to motoring data. Our finance partner is Bank of Ireland. And so I reached out to our finance partner, Bank of Ireland. I said, when somebody gets a PCP or a HP product through the bank, and the bank is the largest motor financing house in Ireland, over 1.2 million customers, I believe. And I said, when somebody's in an EV for 3 years on a PCP or HP, how many of them actually stay and roll into another EV? And the figure is 9 out of 10. So 9 out of 10 people who go into an EV stay in an EV. So these are the kind of facts that we're not getting out. And so I was able to say this morning on Pat Kenny. You hear all the doomsday scenarios, you hear all those one-off stories, but 9 out of 10 people who are in an electric vehicle stay in that electric vehicle. That other 1 in 10 may not suit their lifestyle. They may have made a wrong decision. Their lifestyle may have changed, or their circumstances may have changed. But I think that's a phenomenon, and it's international. That's the kind of figure we're hearing internationally. So that was the first thing that it was great to hear that back from Bank of Ireland. Used EVs was another one. I did ran a report where I can see, again, through our sister company within the Drive group here at Nevo, that how many cars are sitting on Irish forecourts, used vehicles, petrol, diesel, electric, plug-in hybrid. And there's about 35,000 currently around the country. And I did a report on EVs. There's about 3,200 currently sitting on forecourts. And I said, okay, about 10% roughly.
Yep.
How many of them and how long are they sitting there? And I did the 90-day term, which in garage land and dealership land is really what they're thinking. I need to get that shifted before 90 days or after 90 days. Usually it's starting to cost them money. And only 6% of EVs are sitting on forecourts after 90 days. If it's petrol or diesel, it's 16%. So it's showing that used EVs are moving faster off forecourts. As much as you hear some people saying, oh, there's a load of them around. Yes, they're on forecourts, but they're moving faster than petrol or diesel because people understand cheaper running costs, all the benefits of it, that recent price adjustment. And so, so again, stats that we weren't hearing that now we're starting to hear. And the last one then, that getting into new EVs, we at Nevo, we have a price index where we look at the top 10 models every month, track their prices and see what it's like. So in October of 2023, 6 months ago, we looked at the top 10 BEV, we looked at the top 10 petrol and diesel. The average price of an electric vehicle 6 months ago across the top 10 best-selling models was 50,000 euros. Across ICE, petrol and diesel, it was 40,000 euros. That has changed to be more affordable now, where an electric vehicle, the average price of the top 10 electric vehicles sold is 43,000. So it came down 7,000 euros. And the petrol equivalent, diesel equivalents, top 10 sellers, so you have from the Toyota Corolla, Corolla Cross, etc.,
Yes.
for April, that has gone from 40,000 to 37,000. So that drop is not as large as originally electric vehicles would have been more expensive, but now we're starting to see price parity. We're starting to see people. So the whole trope of EVs are too expensive, not the case anymore.
Not the case. Yeah, it's closing. That's what it's great to see both have come down fundamentally. I suppose for anybody who's looking at it, it's a good thing. I think the price of cars are expensive new, and that feeds into the secondhand market. It's something where I've seen it definitely in certain models. We're actually seeing a switch, to be quite honest. Your Hyundai Tucsons, your Kia Sportages, your Toyota RAV4s they're your most popular models in petrol and diesel. People like that kind of smaller CUV. It's not an SUV; it's a crossover CUV as what it is. They're all in the kind of high 30s, low 40 mark, which is where a lot of the other CUVs and electric are now starting to turn up in. And the big one that really stood out for me recently was the Volkswagen Tiguan and Volkswagen ID4, and a Volkswagen Tiguan being 10,000 euros more expensive, And then if you ignore the GTX, which is the all bells and whistles full power one, but if you got into a Volkswagen ID4 Pro Plus, which is effectively the normal top spec that a person is going to buy, that's 45,000. The equivalent non-R model, which is again going to your performance Tiguan 2-liter petrol 4-wheel drive, if you go to the top spec Tiguan, it's something like 60,000 euros. So it actually grows to 15,000 euros more expensive for the ICE model.
And the R model is their bestseller.
Yeah.
Did you know that? So like, it's not even,
Didn't know that.
it's the next level up. So people are paying
Wow.
more. And so this whole, that they're more expensive, absolutely not the case across the
It's a peculiarity, I would say, Derek. It's not
Correct.
the norm, as you've just highlighted, but we're starting to see things shift in a direction where things are going. It's phenomenal, I think. So it's amazing to see it. And I know you were away this week. You've been recording, you've been doing videos and stuff. When you're looking at stuff at what's coming, where do you see it at this point?
Yeah, like this week was Citroen EC3. Like in Europe, 23,300 for entry level U spec, as they call it. The Max is the high level trim with the bells and the whistles on it, but U spec will have a phone holder. It's literally get you from A to B, 320 kilometer range, fast charging of 100 kilowatt DC. You know what I mean? It is all of those things, those critical battery size, charging, and price. That's what people want. If you want to go more, the Max version is there. So there's that. And in a couple of weeks, I'm on the Dacia Spring press launch drive. And so, again, more affordable stuff coming through. And we're starting to hear more rumors about more and more affordable electric vehicles. Thomas Schaefer on LinkedIn this afternoon was talking about electric Volkswagen for sub 20,000 euros. Because those legacy car makers are seeing those other car makers like Stellantis, but also you have the Chinese coming. As we like to always say, with the Dolphin Mini or the Seagull, whatever it's going to be called. I think it's going to be called the Dolphin Mini in Europe. And so, now, don't get me wrong. 2 weeks ago, I was with Mini. Last week, I was with Polestar 3 and 4. Not the cheapest electric vehicles in the world, but we talked about Tiguan's and the price of whatever, the best sellers in Ireland. People are willing to pay for that. So there's one for everybody in the audience. There's nearly 100 electric vehicles now, different makes and models, across the country. We're very lucky with the choice that we have. Pair that with the charging infrastructure getting better, the awareness going out there, the great work that the association is doing, and you can see that, as you said, in the Facebook group, where people saying, "Okay, I've been in this group for 2 years. I'm actually going to pull the trigger on something. I'm between this and this. What do people advise?" And there's a real sense of, do you know what? Everybody's here to help. Usually, yes, we try and be nice about it. But again, I think the thing that stood out to me with the likes of the Citroen EC3 is that's what people have been saying. That's where it needs to be at. The price adjustments where people have lost a lot of money, we can't disagree with that over the last while. That has all fed into the fact that people are looking for cheaper EVs when they do want them, but they don't want to spend 40, 50, 60,000. They want to be at 20,000. They want to be at 10 to 15 for a second-hand one, 5, 6 years old. That's all starting to come about now at this stage. So it's going in the right direction in general. We are paying the price for it in some ways earlier on, as to where things are at with the price adjustments and what's gone on, but it's coming in the right direction. As you say, Citroen EC3, that little phone holder, that's nothing new. The Volkswagen Up came with whatever, 10, 15 years ago. Exactly. That was the way they... it's a fantastic way of doing things. It's, saving the screen. We're using the phone anyway. We're using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So why not utilize what people are using anyway? And give people a choice. You want the screen? It's the Max trim. You don't want the screen? It's the U trim. There you go. Make the decision yourself.
And go for it. So it's fantastic. Definitely. So we'll move on, and we want to talk about currently what it's like. I'm going to say man with a van, that's me, and what it is like living with an EV at the minute. So for people that, again, going back to some people are not aware of what it's actually like, I'm going to say I'm a worst case example, Derek. Would that be correct?
Not worst case example, extreme example is what I'd say. Not worst case. You have an extreme situation where it's a large vehicle with a small battery and you have to stop a lot, which wouldn't be the norm. I wouldn't say worst case example. I'd just say it's a challenging example there. Maybe that's what we'd say.
Like to make my life interesting, I suppose.
As Mrs. Doyle would say, I like the misery.
Yes.
Maybe I like the misery.
I'm going to say what you're going to see here, and what is my example, is on that extreme end of things. We have another example to come after this, which is more to the norm as to what we're seeing. And I'm going to come back to yourself, Derek, after the next one, and let you have your little say in a few things. But, you know, this was a recent trip that I took in April of this year, insofar as I went from Limerick to Carrick, the other side of Donegal. So you can see here, this is up the west coast. This is arguably where we kind of go, this is the worst case scenario to travel across the bit of Ireland as it is. Now, I will say, going out to Galway and probably Clare in the west, that in its own right is probably the tougher bit as you head out that way. But as the main route is up the country, this is what it was. And a 50 kilowatt hour battery Citroen Space Tourer is not 50 kilowatts, it's 45 to start out with. And with a, you know, close to 8 and a bit % of a battery loss over the 58,000 kilometers that I've had it, you know, it's now close to 40 kilowatt hours usable. So 40 kilowatt hours is not that terribly small a battery, but in a 2-ton van, it's not ideal, is the way I would describe it. But this trip was 867 kilometers in the week I had done in Donegal. And again, I filled the battery up at home here before I left, and the pricing and stuff down the end is based on the fact that this was literally, I'm going to say 90% public charging. You know, I had the car full when I left the house in the morning. The first day, everything thereafter was public charging. And, you know, it's expensive as it's going to be. So from Limerick to Carrick, it was just under 5.5 hours of driving and an hour and a half of charging. And on the way back down, it was 4.5 hours on the way back down and an hour and 57 minutes charging. Now, the two oddities there was, one, we had roadworks and traffic on the way up that slowed us down a bit. And on the way back down, we actually had that real bad storm back in April where it came in. And actually, we were in the real bad wind and rain as we were coming back down the country. And we actually ended up stopping 3 times on the way up, but 4 on the way back down, just to give it a little charge in Sligo. Now, sneaky in one sense is I wanted to use the Weave charger in Sligo because I hadn't used them before, and it was an excuse to kind of go, I will stop here and top it up. I could have gotten to where I wanted to get it without it being there, but I used it as it was. And I would say there are 21 sites along that route from Limerick to Carrick up in Donegal. It does get extreme as you head towards the coast in terms of things disappear shortly thereafter. But on that main route, there was 21 sites along the way. A couple of them are hubs. So we used Athenry, we used, what's the Charlestown hub?
Charlestown's a nice hub now, yeah.
Which is a lovely spot. And again, Charlestown was really interesting insofar as on both directions, I had to move the car before we were ready. So we scheduled our lunch break at Charlestown on the way up and the way down. Both occasions, we had to move the car. In fact, on the way back down, I hit 100% on the DC fast charger. I hadn't hit the overstay. I was within the 45 minutes. I was 41 minutes, but I had gotten the car to 100%, and I was literally inside. We were trying to eat our food, and I was like, I actually have to go out and move the car because we're at 100%. And I could see the thing, it kicked me off. So, you know, it's fantastic that it's there, but it's achievable. And the big thing is 250 kilowatt hours was used over the week. It cost me 146 euros for everything. And if you look at the ICE equivalent in my van, it would have cost you 110 euros based on the 7.24 litre. So yes, more expensive, but I offset that not by much. And I would also say, if you looked at my old Ford Galaxy, that would have actually cost me 130 euros because the fuel consumption was worse than that. Whoa. So you're only about 15 euros of a difference for the 867 kilometers at that point in time. So, you know, it's not.
But this is a once or twice a year, so whereas otherwise you said you're offsetting that with the amount of home charging and workplace charging that you do.
I don't even use the work charger. I'm only at home, so I don't even have the work one to use, and it's all at home. We will touch on a little bit in a minute on pricing when we get to that in a sec, but you know, it's a big difference in terms of this is a one-off. This has gone on my holidays. This is the way it was. Moving on to the next one, Tour de Ireland. This was Thomas and
in his yellow jersey.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal journey. And it goes to show Tesla Model 3 long range with 153,000 kilometers, 92%, over 92% state of health. So better than my Citroen. That goes to show the battery management and the tech that's in the Tesla versus what's in my Citroen to be 3 times the kilometers driven and to be at a better position fundamentally. But Thomas did 1,173 kilometers in a day.
He did this back a couple of
13 hours.
years ago, 2021, or when did he do it? He did it a while ago, and he did it the other
Yeah.
way around, didn't he? So
He did
it's
it
on his
in
Twitter.
direction. Yep. And again, driving times were similar enough. He has a huge article on our website on this as to everything that went into it. He charged for a total of 1 hour and 14 minutes. Now think about that. I did 11 charges for 867 kilometers in my van.
3 hours charging.
And Thomas had done 1,173 kilometers for an hour and 14 minutes with 3 stops and 183 kilowatt hours. It's phenomenal, the difference. And
like, unbelievable.
Unbelievable. So this goes to show that when we talk about range anxiety and what's there and what can be done, it's in a normal EV, this is getting very easy. I'm going to come to yourself, Derek. You're coast to coast. You mentioned it in your last video. This is nearly getting too easy when you're driving cars from Dunleary to Belmullet. You know,
like when I started it was like I had to stop, and how long did I have to stop for? And I may have to stop a second time. Whereas now it's like, how much have I left with? And people are like, we know what's going to do it, Derek. Why wouldn't you do Mizzen to Madden? And I was like, well, my mother doesn't live in Mizzen or Madden, so I'm not going to do a trip that doesn't. There's a benefit to doing coast to coast to Belmullet, you know. I'm on that run anyway. As much as I'd love doing what Thomas does every weekend and pretending that I'm driving up around the country, but yeah.
But again, it's phenomenally the difference in two different vehicles, I would say. But again, price, Thomas had majority of stuff here charging on the public network. He is arguably within the price of a petrol or diesel car for public charging. And again, he made the comment in the article is if he had used the, signed up to, Ionity or had been signed up to a couple more of them, it would have been cheaper again. Like he did use Tesla, it's in a Tesla, he could have used Tesla, which would have been cheaper again, just because stops worked out in certain locations. Again, all these sort of things, he could have done it in a cheaper way again, which would have brought it to an even cheaper point. So it's phenomenal. Before we move to fuel pricing, I was going to say, Derek, you bought a little EV yourself.
I did.
I know you haven't gone far in it.
And I won't be going far in it.
But from your side, and for people that are not aware, we were formerly the Irish EV Owners Association.
Correct.
Derek didn't own a car. Therefore, we said we'd take out the owner side of it to make the Irish EV Association to be inclusive to Derek. Then he bought an EV.
For me.
Just Derek on his own. Yes.
There she is, the Ladybug.
There she is.
With 66 kilometer range. And it's perfect for me. So there'll be a whole series on the YouTube channel about it. But
it's fantastic. But I'm going to say, Derek, you have something that is kind of unique. It's fantastic to see it. But again, it goes to show that even with something where somebody might go 66 kilometers is nothing, you're kind of, I don't expect you feel that you're going to miss out on having that or to be stuck.
Not at all. No, it's going to be perfect for going to, local trips around the place, into the office. My office is 10 kilometers away. I usually take public transport or cycle in or whatever it may be, but some days I do have to take the car in. And this is just ideal, £1,500. Now there's a bit of work to be done on it, don't get me wrong, but yeah, like
phenomenal, isn't it?
And it's something unique, as you said. I better not be burning past people at traffic lights or all that kind of stuff. They know it's me, so conscious of time, we're a couple of minutes away from the hour mark. So some good news.
The good news. So there's two things I suppose to put with this is, so we've seen recently that Ireland is the second most expensive country in Europe to charge or refuel your electric vehicle at home. So switcher.ie had a good article and a table on the what was in there. And I've been smart and I said, if you were smart and used your night rate where possible, you can find between 7 and 20 cents at night, which is a quarter, an eighth of the price of what is the average price that's there. Now, this goes back to what we talked about earlier on with the just transition and being in a point where you can actually do that. So I've only recently switched providers this week and I'm paying 13.6 cents, including VAT, for my night rate electricity for
how long is that for?
8 hours.
Time? 8 hours.
8 hours,
wow.
The full night rate. So from my perspective, because the van needs 5 to 6 hours of charging every night, those smaller windows don't suit me from the boost windows, 2 or 3 hours. Therefore, I've gone with the cheapest overall night rate that I could get. That's 13.5 cents. Now it's dropping. You know, I've gone from 39, just under 40 cents during the day and just under 20 cents at night, to 27.5 during the day and just under 14 at night. You know, things are moving in the right direction from individual, you know, pricing electricity. That helps with costs, but we need it to go in the right direction. But the point here is, if you're on those smart meters with those boost hours that are 7 cents at nighttime, we can be between 23rd and 39th in the list of 40 countries for charging your vehicle. So yes, they're not wrong. The 37.9 cents is the average price of electricity across everything during the day. Not everybody can get those night rates, but if you have a meter at home, be it smart, be it a night saver, etc., you can actually make quite an impact on your own individual situation and put it into that way. So it's to be aware of it. You know, there's a little bit of thought goes into these things, but bring that right. But
sorry, this was the good news. That last slide wasn't the good news. This is the good news.
Go for it, Derek. I'll let you talk.
No. It's a good cut back up. Phenomenal last week. We had on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, came out and said they want to be the cheapest supermarket EV charging. And this is the area you're going to see really hotting up. And so they have dropped their DC pricing to 50 cents per kilowatt hour, which is phenomenal. Their AC is around 40 cents, I believe. And so great to see it, and hopefully more people jump into the bandwagon of, you know what, if you want to get cheaper electricity and a good week shopping, Lidl seems to be the place to go at the moment. And today or yesterday, I think it was this morning, Ionity came out and dropped their prices on every single market that they were operating in at the base rate, but also they have a number of different monthly. So in Ireland, if you go for the Ionity Passport Power, it drops it down to 42 cents. Which is again great. And somebody jumped into the comments and said, oh, Tesla sometimes can be even cheaper because they do dynamic pricing. But yes, Tesla's not open to everybody and all the different sites. But yeah, so more and more. We haven't got ESB doing this yet, but I mentioned it a couple of months ago when I was on chatting with Adrian Weckler that I had an inkling that this is going to start to happen with the wholesale price coming down. People are starting to make that connection between, you know what, let's make this cheaper because it's a unique selling point and it'll get people to use our chargers. And I guarantee you, Lidl chargers have been busy since.
They have. I can well imagine they have, yes. So it's a bit of good news to end on, I suppose, Derek. That's to give people an idea that
I've got a couple of comments as well that I can run through, but yeah, it's there's between the stats, between the charging network, between the models that are available, it's great to jump on with you, Matthew, and get an update from the Irish EV Association. I asked about different types of anxiety. Niall, I can't jump in. I can't. Matthew can see it there, but the anxiety.
I saw it. I don't think we're going to share that one.
No, we won't. But it's people who don't drive an electric vehicle parking in EV charging bays.
Yeah.
And there's another word that Niall put into it there. We've got a comment from EV Nation on YouTube. Hi guys, thanks for the great and informative podcast. Thanks for tuning in, EV Nation. We also have Alan Fraser. E-cars price anxiety.
I didn't see that one. Yeah, okay.
It's good. Laura, very informative. Well done. Thank you, Laura, for jumping in. And we have Thomas just confirming it was September 2020, back when the world was a very different place. He drove around the country, isolated. Yes. But thank you so much for your time, Matthew. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. We've got a great number of people tuned in across all of our different platforms. Is there anything final you'd like to wrap up with, Matthew?
No, I think the big thing is we've covered a lot here this evening, I suppose, and we'll come back again in another couple of episodes and we'll do another one like this ourselves and just talk through it from our side of things. But I think the big thing to take away is that it's looking positive. I don't want to say that just because we're the Irish EV Association, but I genuinely do think it is looking positive and people should see that in what we talked about this evening. And hopefully in another few months, we're talking about, we'll probably do a bit of work to look at the motorway network and see where it's gone in the last 18 months or so and give an update that way and keep things moving. But yeah, it's just things are looking bright. Things are going in the right direction. We can see a lot of what's going on. We don't always want to put things out there because some things aren't confirmed. You don't want to put something out there and have it fall down flat and we're kind of going
misinformation or disinformation.
Yes, yeah. We'll try not to do that, Derek. But it's going in the right direction. So that's the big thing, of everything this evening. Things are going in the right direction. We have headwinds. Things are in a process of change. I think you made the comment to me one of the days, Derek, that when we look at the IEVA regulations and the ban and stuff, there's maybe 3 or 4 cycles of people buying cars in PCP before they are forced not really forced, but you know, the option
They
doesn't
won't have a
exist
choice.
anymore.
Yeah.
They won't have a choice.
Now they can still go used internal combustion engine at the time as well. So, but yeah, there is only a couple more cycles, and yes, myself and Matthew and the committee and those that are in the EV space are in a bubble, and sometimes it can be a bit negative, and we see that.
Yeah.
Myself and Matthew are both on the moderators for the Facebook group, and Lord, some of the stuff that comes in there. But when we see good news like that as well, we definitely want to share it. And we are seeing the panel applications going. Sorry, Thomas is seeing them and letting us know about it. There is, and the AFR stuff, the price drops, the more models coming, the stats that I was sharing today with Pat Kenny, and that podcast is available on Spotify. So it's getting the facts out there and let people make up their own decision. And that's what it's all about. It's not about hearsay. It's not about people down the pub or on social media. It's very much about, and that's what the association is about, and the Facebook group has been great. WD Hamilton, thank you so much for an excellent update on all of your hard work. Yeah, it is definitely a committee. It's behind the scenes. There's a lot of work that goes on here. We don't get a salary from this. It's all voluntary, so it's very much a passion that we all have for driving the adoption and the awareness of electric vehicles in the Irish market.
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, have a great night. We're a couple of minutes over, but we were worth it, weren't we, Matthew?
Always, Derek. Always.
If you're watching this after the fact, make sure you do jump into the comments and let us know what you think. But from myself, with the event section here, the Irish EV Association, and Matthew as chair, we'd like to wish you a good evening, and we will see you soon. We're also, now that we're getting into the summer month, we will be having a meetup around the country in the next before the end of the summer. And so keep an eye on the page for that. We had the last one there at our AGM, so we're due in once a quarter. So it is in the works, where we get to meet up and have a chat, kick some tires and talk about EVs.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great night.